Slumdog Millionaire is a great example of transnational cinema, how Hollywood managed to create the film by hybridizing the languages and cultures of both the West and East, blending different ethnicities into the production stages while also globalizing to suit the viewing tastes and linguistic preferences of cross-continental audiences.
Jamal Malik, garba garam chai dene wala from Mumbai. Let's play Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
This film, however, directly and indirectly uses globalization, capitalism and Orientalism to portray a very Western idea of what it is to be Indian, moving far away from Bollywood's musical escapist themes and more into the realm of Western realism.
You really thought you could just walk in and take my prize away? Latika, come. Have you any idea how much this little virgin is worth?
Focusing on this aspect, we can clearly see throughout the film how the West has chosen to depict the Indian people and its culture in a negative way. They do this by showing huge amounts of poverty and squalor across the slums, begging children in the street, hostile religious violence against Muslims, repeated use of abuse towards children, the brutality and the corruption of the Indian police forces, prostitution and heavy use of crime within the story. Taking a look more into the capitalist side, we are introduced to a story which uses a very American rags to riches plotline, where the poor uneducated protagonist Jamal, to achieve a better life, must play a Western game show, in essence, winning money from the capitalist society.
5 seconds. 4, 3.
From rags to Raja. It's your destiny.
We are on.
This interview of Danny Boyle, the director of Slumdog Millionaire, further backs up this notion of Hollywood's capitalist exploitation of the East.
The way it's being rebuilt, I mean, it's being the investment that's obviously going on there, and Hollywood, for instance, is very aware of, is there scooping up, trying to scoop up some of that cash really that's there.
Danny Boyle's words can further be reflected in the heavy use of Western products used within the film, with the likes of Coca-Cola, Polaroid, Mercedes-Benz, Converse, Sony, and Nokia, to name but a few of the big brands advertised. With these points alone, we can already see how the Western themes have dominated over the Indian influences Hollywood has tried to merge together. What really pulls it apart is the perception of Western capitalism and culture being used as a beacon of hope from India's harsh way of life.
Are you okay?
You wanted to see a bit of real India? Here it is.
All right.
Well, here is a bit of the real America, son.
Oh, yeah, you. Here.
This emphasizes the Western outlook on life, that money is the answer to solve all your problems.
I'd like to be a contestant on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Hello.
The final aspect of Western domination lies in the use of education of Indian culture versus the West. Jamal is a badly educated boy. He doesn't even know which famous figure is represented on his own currency,
I've heard of him.
or even the history behind one of India's most famous landmarks, the Taj Mahal, but is able to tell you an American president on a $100 bill,
1 million rupees!
and street names and landmarks from all over the UK.
There's a rowing race between Oxford and Cambridge, so there's probably a Cambridge circus too, no? I'll go for D, London.
The show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire symbolises this difference through the entire film by comparing the values of each question's worth, how only the lower value questions are based on Indian culture, while all the higher value questions are based on the West,
You're absolutely right!
essentially making out that Western culture is more valuable than that of India's.
I wake up every morning wishing I didn't know the answer to that question.
Taking a different direction in the Western attempts at a transnational film, Snowpiercer is a film that emerged from the Korean New Wave cinema, funded by 4 different Korean production companies using a Czech Republic film studio and a German visual effects company, along with a huge variety of cast and crew from different ethnic and cultural backgrounds. It has created an Eastern version of transnational cinema, totally divergent of that from the West. In the film, we're able to see how the Korean filmmakers have managed to adapt Hollywood's production techniques, creating a blend of Eastern cinematic traditions with Western sensibilities in a perfect balance.
I killed Edgar's mother.
This juxtaposition of both styles trickles down to the actors, showing the contrast between the Western hero Curtis alongside the Eastern characters, both equally relying on each other to keep the story moving forward.
Number of human beings, all in their proper places, all adding up to what? Humanity. The train is the world. We the humanity.
Snowpiercer's greatest attribute for making this film transnational lies in its ability to transcend themes across borders and boundaries, with the train actually being used as a metaphor for connection and travelling between distances across the whole world.
His greatest dream was to construct a luxury locomotive cruise line connecting railways of the entire world into one.
The themes the filmmakers have chosen to depict can be easily relatable within the global community, further emphasising its reach as a transnational film. It does this by creating more depth than that of Hollywood's Slumdog Millionaire, by touching on a wider variety of social issues that resonate in the world as we know it. The whole train is symbolically represented as the world, with the front engine being the embodiment of capitalism, acting as a driving force of the economy and its effects, views and organisation of the whole population on board.
As in the beginning, I belong to the front. You belong to the tail.
With its major themes being clearly established as the inequality and class warfare of the people, this is shown to us as the protagonist makes his way through the length of the train. The film also alludes us to other dynamic concerns we share over climate change, political turmoil, drug abuse, violence, and the ever-rising population growth of the planet.
Balance. You see, this aquarium is a closed ecological system, and the number of individual units must be very closely, precisely controlled in order to maintain the proper, sustainable balance.
The film Snowpiercer is an amazing piece of cinema, breaking multiple box office records in its home country and across the rest of Asia. The Korean filmmakers have created a true transnational film, adapting into a modernising world. Borrowing from Western film techniques and social themes that resonate around the world while applying a diverse set of languages and culture, it's halted by only one overwhelming drawback to break the global market, and that is the West's domination of it. Having to rely on the use of a Western distribution company, the filmmakers were called on to edit 20 minutes of their film to better attune to cater for a Western audience. Refusing to do so meant the film was only shown in limited cinemas and direct-to-DVD commenced only 2 weeks after theatre release. This practice severely puts Eastern films at a disadvantage compared to Western film releases, having to obey to the whims of the West or to be punished financially if they don't. My conclusion: it's easy to see how the predominantly rich North dominates the rest of the world, with most countries having to adapt to compete with the West. This dominance is creating hybridity of films across the poorer nations, adapting to use both Western and Eastern cultures, talent and film techniques to make films more globally connected. Snowpiercer sets a new precedence, with Western talent moving east, rather than the one-way flow of Eastern talent moving west. Another variant of this transnational cinema is flourishing on both sides of the world, with countries making film adaptations and remakes of each other's work to try and break into new markets. Hollywood, for now and the foreseeable future, rules over this world globally with its cultural imperialism and renown, usually making more money internationally than that of its foreign counterparts. Until changes in the way Western companies allow for foreign films to be distributed fairly, or the world's appeal of the capitalist societies of the West changes, we will not see this balance shift into a more united film world. But with cross-border communications getting better and Eastern nation economies improving, we will be seeing a lot more cross-country collaborations in the future.